Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a method that can honestly transform your ability to learn and, maybe more importantly, actually remember stuff.
I mean, it sounds like a superpower, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's not magic, it's a skill that's totally grounded in some fascinating science. The real key isn't about studying longer, it's about learning smarter. So, here's a wild fact for you. Within just 24 hours, a single day, our brains can forget up to 70% of new information we take in. And look, this isn't some personal flaw, it's just how our brains are wired. So the real question is, how do we fight back against that? To solve this problem, we first have to understand it. I want you to think of your brain like a leaky bucket. You can pour all this great information in, but if you don't do anything to patch the leaks, most of it is just going to trickle right out. Let's take a look at the actual science behind why this happens. You're looking at something called the forgetting curve, and it shows that forgetting isn't random, it's predictable. Way back in the 1880s, a psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus actually mapped this out. His curve proves that our memory for new things drops off a cliff unless we actively do something to stop it. This curve, this is the enemy we're up against. So we all try to fight it, right? We reread chapters over and over, we get out our highlighters and make the page glow, we write these super detailed summaries. The problem is, most of these really common methods are, well, they're shockingly ineffective. They create something called the illusion of learning. Just take a look at this comparison. Over on the left, you've got passive review, rereading, highlighting. All this stuff feels super productive, but it doesn't really challenge your brain. Now look at the right side, active recall. Testing yourself, trying to explain things. This is the mentally demanding stuff. That effort, that struggle, that's what actually builds strong memories. And here is the absolute most crucial difference. When you just reread your notes, you're training for recognition. It's like seeing a face in a crowd and thinking, oh yeah, I've seen them before. But a test, or a business meeting, or just trying to remember a new colleague's name, that requires recall. That's pulling the name out of thin air. They are two completely different things. So this brings us to the solution, a really powerful science-backed technique that's basically a workout for your memory. It's called active recall, and honestly, it is a complete game changer. At its core, active recall is simply the act of pulling information out of your brain. Instead of just passively looking at the answer on the page, you force your brain to go find it. And every single time you struggle a bit and then succeed, you are strengthening that connection in your brain, making it way easier to find next time. And look, the power of this is totally backed by science. A 2011 study split students into two groups. One group just reread the material 4 times. The other group, they read it just once and then they tested themselves. The results were pretty staggering. The active recall group did significantly better. Just think about that. Testing yourself once is more effective than rereading something 4 times. The productivity expert Ali Abdaal puts it perfectly. If your studying feels difficult, that is a good sign. It means you're actually working your brain's muscles. Easy, passive review is kind of like lifting a weight that's way too light for you. You're not going to see much progress. Active recall is the heavy lifting that builds real memory strength. Okay, so the theory is great, but how do we actually put this into practice? Let's build your new study toolkit with a few techniques that you can start using, like today. We're going to look at 3 of the most effective active recall techniques out there. Each one is super simple, you can use it for almost anything, and they're incredibly powerful. We'll cover flashcards, something called the Feynman technique, and just good old-fashioned practice questions. First up, flashcards. These are the undisputed king of active recall. You have a question on one side, an answer on the other. It's so simple, but it forces you to retrieve the answer before you let yourself see it. And now with digital apps like Anki or Quizlet, it's even better because they automate the whole process for you. Next is the Feynman technique, named after a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, so you know it's legit. First, you pick a concept you want to learn. Second, and this is the magic part, you try to explain it in the simplest terms you can, as if you were teaching it to a child. You will immediately find where you stumble or use complicated jargon. That's step 3. You've just identified your knowledge gaps. So for step 4, you just go back to your material, fill in those gaps, and refine that simple explanation. It's so effective. Now, this is a really important mindset shift, so listen up. You can't be afraid of getting the answer wrong when you're testing yourself. Research actually shows that the very act of struggling to retrieve information, even if you fail, strengthens the memory once you finally see the correct answer. The struggle itself is literally where the learning happens. So, this whole journey really comes down to one fundamental shift in how you approach learning. It's about moving from being a passive consumer of information to an active participant in your own education. This famous quote really captures the entire philosophy. True understanding isn't about memorizing complex definitions. It's about being able to retrieve a concept from your brain and explain it in your own simple words. That's the ultimate test of knowledge, and it's the very core of active learning. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. The next time you sit down to learn something new, ask yourself, are you just passively looking at the information hoping it'll stick? Or are you actively challenging your brain to retrieve it, to forge memories that will actually last? The choice is yours.